Hello, and welcome to the podcast version of the Week in Review newsletter, which you can subscribe to for free at newsletter.theweekinreview.com. This is issue number 13. Why reboot Faces of Death, though? Faces of Death 2026 has a 100 Gex-inspired end credit song, which intercuts its incomprehensibly machined vocals with monologue from Faces of Death 1978. It's awesome, and I need the OST ASAP because I want to listen to it at least 100 more times. And I start at the end because I think it exemplifies what makes Faces of Death 2026 so much more interesting and worthwhile than it has any right to be. Not that that's a high bar. Honestly, it is hard to imagine a move more strategically cynical than acquiring the rights to and then rebooting Faces of Death, a franchise that is really more of a branding exercise for a particularly vicious set of movies that mix very realistic but definitely staged like murders and deaths alongside actual footage of dead and dying people, sometimes with staged footage expanding real moments. Like at first this was presented as a real documentary, but it's really just the most fucked up compilation video imaginable. And though that first film did play in theaters, it was the VHS release in 1983 that really cemented its place in gorehound history. We know now what is and isn't real, but back then it may as well have been an honest-to-goodness snuff film. Which, ew. Now, did I watch Cannibal Holocaust instead of going to my junior prom? Yes. Have I seen a Serbian film? Twice. Sure have. Have I watched 2 of the 3 August Underground movies, which are themselves faux snuff? Yes, and I even liked one of them, kind of. But I've never been interested in Faces of Death because I just don't want to see the real thing. I don't like real violence, and I never have. I don't watch boxing or MMA. I ignored the truck trying to get tourists on Koh Phangan to come see a real Muay Thai fight. All 50 times it drove by me. Like, no. Yet obviously there are people who do like real violence, who want to see the most horrible shit imaginable and giddily passed around a VHS back then and probably pass around live leak links now or whatever horrible stuff makes it past the moderators/censors of the major platforms. A lot has changed in 48 years. And I guess the only way to even try to justify making a new Faces of Death is to explicitly reckon with those changes. Which is exactly what Faces of Death 2026 does. It follows 2 people. Arthur, an attention-seeking psychopath who has been posting recreations of sequences from the original film, tagged #FOD 2024 to give you a sense of how long they've been looking for a distributor, that show up in the queue of content moderator Margot, who initially thinks that they are fake, but slowly realizes that they are quite real and tries to find and stop him. Just over 4 years ago, I wrote a short script called Consan, short for Content Sanitation, which was inspired by the article The Trauma Floor, The Secret Lives of Facebook Moderators in America. It centers on 2 content moderators having a semi-philosophical argument about whether to approve or reject a video in which the CEO of their company beats a man to death. The debate takes too long, flagging their conversation for corporate review, smash cut to another moderator logging in, seeing a video of them being buried alive, saying, "Oh, that's where they went," and then rejecting it while eating a potato chip. Bleak. But it wasn't really about content moderation so much as corporate exploitation. It took place in a brightly colored room with couches that you'd quickly be flagged for using. One of the 2 moderators was being forced to work a double overnight because she had missed an earlier shift after being hit by a car. Instead of checking fingerprints, the identification/clock-in machine takes a finger prick of blood, which caused an uproar for a week before everyone moved on. These things are over the top. Yeah, but barely. What is the difference between that little bit of physical pain and the real mental anguish that these people experience? At best, a content moderator will be desensitized to the most horrible shit in the world, and the rest become legitimately traumatized in ways that can completely upend their lives. It is dehumanization on top of dehumanization. Face of Death director / co-writer Daniel Goldhaber, whose prior directorial / co-writing effort, How to Blow Up a Pipeline, was my favorite film of 2022. Briefly content moderated for a friend's social media startup, which he was able to draw on, though this movie is also not about content moderation. Because while he was doing the work, he was struck by the fact that other than the CSAM, which is pretty big other than, he had seen all of these kinds of horrific images before. Not so concentrated, sure, but this wasn't new imagery. So it makes sense that the first #FOD 2024 video is a pretty straightforward decapitation, reminiscent of the kind of thing you see on the news. Who hasn't seen one at this point? Of course, Margot lets it go as probably fake, and in general just isn't so bothered by it. There's so many other horrible things around it, and a lot of those are actually really real, because the production figured it was easier to license a video of someone being hurt real bad than to safely recreate it. And also, it's in keeping with the franchise roots, and also it's easier to make a point about the lengths people will go to receive attention online if you're using actual examples of people going to great lengths to receive attention online. Those logistics are a big part of why content didn't make it past script. But among these real clips is another fake one that points to the censorious nature of the policies that moderators are asked to enact. An explanation of the proper administration of Narcan following an overdose is literally life-saving information, more important than anything that we have seen Margot allow. Yet after a few seconds, she rejects it on the grounds of drug use. Infuriating. In particular, because she clearly believes that she is doing good. She thinks her work is important, in part because if someone else had been doing their job better, she would be able to go out in public. She wouldn't be known as Train Girl, because people wouldn't have seen her sister get hit by a train while the two of them were filming by some tracks. Of course, an event like that would drive someone to believe in the value of content moderation, but also, considering how everyone seems to recognize her, clearly that video went viral as fuck, and that's good for business. When Arthur's second video comes across Margot's feed, doubt starts to creep in, but her boss says, it's probably fake, so it's probably fine anyway. It's getting engagement, right? Give the people what they want. Infuriating. And it's weird to ask for attention about a movie asking for attention about the attention economy. This film is as subtle as three mannequins cracking your skull with hammers. And any critiques I might have about that critique are inevitably filtered through a deep desire to have you engage with my content or whatever. I am in competition with the actual Faces of Death 2026 and also Faces of Death 1978 and also literally every other thing. This YouTube channel, as it was originally conceived, died because I couldn't play the game well enough. I was not able to commit to vying for attention at scale. Like, I hope that more people join the newsletter because I want to write for people, and I hope that they enjoy the things that I write. But I don't know, man. It's tough. It's tough out there. And so if you've got a specific kind of brain, you can see how someone might do a version of what Arthur is doing. Because the trick isn't just that he's remaking the murders, but for real, hearkening back to a thing that some people kind of remember, is that he's doing so underneath the audio from Faces of Death 1978, murder syncing to the original track. Like 99% of TikToks you have ever seen. And it inspires a whole host of remakes and parodies and etc. of its own because that's how the game is played. Arthur knows that silently going live while showing his handiwork is exactly how you get people craving the next hit. And the victims are, by and large, people who you might kind of recognize. Oh, that's that filmmaker. Oh, he's on the local news. Oh, I saw her dance video where she was at the pool so she could wear a revealing bathing suit without being flagged. If you think about it, is really the ultimate collab. But Faces of Death doesn't look quite as good as it needs to fully sell this. I could easily go down some kind of weird rhetorical rabbit hole about wanting to actually see actual looking violence, but the simple fact is that a Faces of Death movie cannot look fake. It fails in its core mission the instant you stop thinking about what's happening because that chopped up body looks silly as hell. And wow, the compositing on the smoke coming off the acid being poured over it is terrible. the horror needs to be horrible. And when it is, the movie is deeply affecting, but like when some guns go off later on, that shit's weak as hell. And I'm annoyed at how big of a problem it is, because I understand that it is ultimately a function of being a lower budget production. To safely blow a hole through that fence while someone was climbing it absolutely would have taken money they didn't have. But if all you're going to do is pull a little puff of smoke and tiny mark, just don't have guns. I know it's hard to tell a story about violence in America without guns, but if it doesn't look good, it doesn't work, it makes the movie measurably worse. Like, not unrelated, the finale of The White Lotus season 3 had a lot of problems, but the amateuress shootout at the end was really the big one for me. That just, it looked so fucking bad. Yet despite all of that, there's a lot to like here and a lot to chew on. At times it gave me Assassination Nation vibes. Shame that Ferrer left Euphoria, though I understand why. And Assassination Nation, canonically, my favorite movie. So like 2 thumbs up. I think that they would actually make a pretty good double feature. The movie that I would really pair it with is Pascal Plant's much more serious Red Rooms, which I have thought about at least once a week since I saw it 56 weeks ago. It follows Kellyanne, a model who is fixated on the trial of an alleged child killer who made the videos of those killings available for purchase on the internet. It's extremely good and got under my skin in a way that very few movies ever have. And more importantly, it is coming at some of the same ideas about the way we glorify violence and obsess over it and fuel it with attention, but from a totally different and complementary perspective. Like it's easy to imagine a Kellyanne type fixation being pointed towards Arthur. Indeed, we see the growing followership in the comments. But what really binds them is their understanding of digital dynamics. My friend Garth called Red Rooms a top contender for best movie about the internet, and I think Faces of Death should be in contention as well. I don't know if we've quite crossed the Rubicon, but increasingly films are being made by people who grew up both connected and isolated by this technology. There are extended sequences where Margot uses Reddit to try to figure out what's going on and who's behind it, and it feels natural or even necessary. Like, how could you not directly reference "Don't fuck with cats" in this context? Goldhaber and co-writer Issa Maze understood the assignment, as it were. They understood how to take this franchise, this branding exercise, and do something genuinely compelling with it. They did everything they could to justify the existence of this arguably unjustifiable production. And they came pretty dang close. A 7.5 out of 10. This has been the podcast version of the Week in Review newsletter, which again, you can subscribe to for free at newsletter.theweekinreview.com, where you will get all of these instead of just the ones I feel like recording, and also get them when they're written and not like way later. Some of these are super, super late. Anyways, hope you join me, and I hope to write for you next time.